Okay, well, it's time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines here in the French papers. We're joined by Solange Moujon, who's been going through those papers. A lot of praise, Solange, for France's tennis team.
Indeed, formidable. That's the headline that Daily 20 Minutes went with this morning to congratulate the French team against on their win against Belgium 3-2. Now you'll notice that the B of the headline is capitalized. It makes reference to the French national teams, which are called les Bleus. So it's a play on words with the word formidable or marvelous. Yes, indeed. Now, L'Équipe, the sports daily, goes with a similarly happy cover, un pur bonheur, a pure joy. Inside the paper, L'Équipe has an interview with the French team's coach, Yannick Noah. He describes the rush of adrenaline and happiness that it was to win, but he also talks about the weight of the past and how for the past 16 years of losing the Davis Cup was very heavily on the minds of the team. But he says that they managed to catch a wave of energy and that helped them win. Noah also talks about the future and whether or not he'll continue to coach the French team. He's a bit doubtful in the interview. He says that he'll have to talk it over with his wife because he says tennis sort of takes over his life and his other pastimes such as singing. He's a famous singer in France.
Indeed, he's very well known for singing and previously as being a tennis star himself. However, this Davis Cup has actually brought a new star to light.
It has. He's 23 years old. His name is Lucas Pouille, and he is the new darling of the French sports world, or at least of the tennis world. If you want to know more about him, go to L'Obs. They tell us 10 things we've been dying to know about Lucas Pouille. Among them, according to one of his trainers, he was not one of the most talented players when he was a kid, but his success is due to a lot of hard work and determination.
Okay, well, let's move on now to a story that we might feel we've covered a lot recently, but the vote still hasn't taken place. It's the EU looking at whether or not to extend the licence for a very powerful and very widely used weed killer.
Yeah, it's crunch time. The future of glyphosate is being decided today, normally. Europe is deeply divided on the issue because the pesticide, which is in Monsanto's Roundup, is thought to likely cause cancer. Le Monde has an article that tells us that France will vote no on prolonging the use of the pesticide for 5 years. They want it to be prolonged for 3 to 4. Now, L'Opinion is also covering the story. It says that the controversial vote has been postponed a number of times, as you were talking about, but that the moment of truth has arrived because if EU nations don't decide by December 15th, the sale of glyphosate could be simply outlawed, or the European Commission would vote on the issue. And L'Opinion explains that that would not be a good thing for Brussels' image. It says that it would promote the idea that the EU is not able to get things done or find compromises. Now, L'Opinion concludes that in its article that glyphosate is a herbicide, but it is as well a Europicide.
One of the problems, of course, has been, scientists coming up with different conclusions about this glyphosate. Some saying it's very dangerous, some saying not really at all, and vital in crop production.
Indeed. Le Parisien this morning has an article entitled "The Study That Is Sowing Seeds of Discord." It goes into how there have been biased studies in the past that were sponsored by Monsanto. They say that glyphosate is not those studies said that glyphosate is not cancerous, but Le Parisien tells us that there's now an independent American study that actually backs Monsanto studies up, saying that it isn't cancerous, that it causes certain leukemias, but it's not as bad as we thought. But Le Parisien says we shouldn't jump for joy yet, that even longer studies need to be done. Le Monde is equally skeptical. It says that the timing of the study is just too sweet for Monsanto, and it published today a large excerpt of the Monsanto papers. These are internal documents from the firm that show that they've long had their fingers in the honeypot, and then when it comes to trying to sway opinion.
Okay, yeah, an interesting one to watch. And of course, we have just seen how one country, at least Sri Lanka, we've seen farmers there cope without it. So it is apparently possible. Let's turn now, Solange, to education and the plight of poor children here in France.
Yeah, Libération this morning has an extensive article about poverty and the French school system. It says that in France, 1 out of 5 children is poor and 1 out of 10 is extremely poor, that they suffer from lack of malnutrition, lack of housing. The article interviews teachers who say that the students, for example, are homeless, and they come to school exhausted because they've slept outside all night. And these teachers say they feel abandoned by the government, and they're calling on Emmanuel Macron to tackle the issue that French schools can, quote, remain egalitarian places where children can be on equal footing to learn.
Yeah, fair enough. I have to say the number of families and children you see sleeping on the streets of Paris has been growing in recent years, quite alarmingly. Solange, we're going to have to leave it there for now, but thanks indeed. That wraps it up for the look at the French papers. And time for us to take a very quick break now, but we're back with all the latest updates in a few minutes. Do stay with us.